All right, welcome back. Let's continue with more news. Now, Stellenbosch University's Professor Thuli Madonsela has been appointed to the UN Secretary General's newly created Scientific Advisory Board for Independent Advice of Breakthroughs in Science and Technology. The board will advise UN leaders on how to harness the benefits and mitigate potential risks of advances in science and tech due to the growing ethical, legal and political concerns in a space that requires multilateral solutions. Professor Thuli Madonsela, in fact, joins us live from our online platforms for this chat. A very good afternoon to you, Prof. Thank you for your time with us here on the SABC.
Good afternoon, Liesl, and to the viewers. Thank you for the privilege to join you.
Firstly, congratulations, and we're wishing you all the best of luck as you continue to fly the flag high for South Africa. So, and perhaps for those who've just tuned in, you can unpack the appointment of the role and how it came about.
Thank you, Liesl. The Scientific Advisory Board of the UN Secretary General is an initiative of the current UN Secretary General, Antonio Guterres, and it's about marrying science with policy making and also improving the ethical considerations that go into evaluating and supporting scientific and technological interventions. And you know that life is better because of science and because of advances in technology, including artificial intelligence. But there are booby traps in many of these developments. And therefore, this advisory board is an interdisciplinary group that will bring in additional perspectives. Of course, the UN has its own scientific experts, including our very own Professor Marwala, who is the Vice Chancellor of UJ. And they're just bringing additional 7 eminent persons from the rest of the world. How did it come about? I was invited to join. And when I was first approached by Dr. Suzuki, representing the Secretary General, I asked at the meeting if they were aware that I'm a lawyer and not a natural scientist. And it was very clear from their understanding that they know exactly what my footprint has been. And the idea is to bring a different perspective, which includes law, ethics, and governance. But also we've been doing groundbreaking work around leveraging data science and technology to improve the proficiency and equity impact of policies. You know, policies tend to be designed with a one-size-fits-all, as we saw with the regulatory policies of COVID-19. And those who don't fit that size fall through the cracks. And I believe that the perspective I will bring into this particular group is the work we've done with the Social Justice Impact Assessment Matrix and the Social Justice Explorer, among other tools for what we call foresight tools to make sure that policies advance equitable human progress and do not exacerbate existing disparities and challenges.
No, absolutely. You're speaking about perspectives and restoring equities and mitigating against some of the inequalities, which was very rife during the COVID-19 pandemic. And I wonder what this appointment means for South Africa in this space, for the champion of social justice, perhaps even the continent's agency at large. We saw narratives and frameworks pervading during the COVID-19 pandemic that were discriminatory. And I wonder if a more Afrocentric approach is also going to assist in restoring that agency.
Well, I do believe that by bringing in South Africa, and 2 South Africans for that matter, the intention is to integrate an African perspective, but it's also affirming that South Africa has been doing a lot of great work. We saw what Professor Marwala was doing at UJ, and some people have seen what we've been doing at Stellenbosch University in leading this leveraging of data science to advance policy proficiency and equity conscious policy designs, so that ultimately we're not surprised when we don't make progress on the UN Sustainable Development Goals. We realize up front that if we make certain policy choices, they're going to exacerbate the problem instead of mitigating it. And I do hope that will also contribute to climate change. But each one of us, of course, is not going to contribute to everything. We all bring unique perspectives. Yes. Mine, of course, as you've just indicated, is social justice, ethics, and governance.
Absolutely. And I wonder, seeing as we are shining a spotlight on women during Women's Month, and what this means to create to make a space that's more inclusive for women and girls at large, how do you think this role also plays into that narrative and is a win for women at large?
Well, it certainly is a win, because it's a very small board that has been created, only 7 persons, and among those persons are women, and I happen to be one of them. And for me, also, it's an intersectionality between being a woman, being an African, and being a Black African, for that matter. And that affirms that group as being capable of not only benefiting from science, technology, and the policy implications of that, but also being generators of knowledge. As the African Academy of Sciences, we've always said that we want African scientists, African professionals, for that matter, to be seen as not just beneficiaries of what happens in the West or places where you extract data, but also the work that we're doing in using data to advance humanity should also be recognized. And this is being done.
Yeah.
When it comes to women, the instruments we're designing at Stellenbosch University, such as the Social Justice Impact Assessment Matrix, focus on making sure that there's no one-size-fits-all in the development of policies, because a lot of the cruelty that we see in the world comes from a one-size-fits-all policy design, where those who are not part of that paradigm just fall through the cracks. So people are not being left behind, as the SDGs suggest. They're being thrown behind. And hopefully the vision of the SG that is really about leveraging science to advance policy design is going to resonate with our work. But he's going further into looking at making sure that even as we endorse developments in science and cutting-edge technology, we are looking at both the problem-solving aspects of those scientific developments and technology, but also avoid any unintended consequences that harm certain groups in society or the whole of humanity.
Because, Prof, you're actually alluding to a values-based approach that will be incorporated in the scientific development space as well. And I wonder what South African values or principles you'd like to bring into your tenure, into your approach, perhaps to see more of, to aid in the discussions happening globally.
Oh, thank you for asking that question, Lizelle, because, of course, I would bring what our Constitutional Court has said is the basis of our values, that is Ubuntu. So Ubuntu has a whole lot of values in it. One of them is the equality of human beings, the fact that every human being deserves to be treated with equal consideration. And treating people with equal consideration means treating them as equals. And if you treat people as equals, you're not going to say somebody who is wheelchair bound is being treated as an equal if they are required to go through a narrow door. And that's not treatment as equals. Or if you don't take into account the fact that women fall pregnant, or you don't take into account of existing spatial disparities and all other disparities. But treatment as equals means every person would have to be treated fairly, whether they're rich or poor. In other words, you won't treat somebody with cruelty just because they're rich or because they're poor. And that's part of the value of Ubuntu. And also among the values of Ubuntu is the interconnectedness of humanity and the shared humanity advancement through human solidarity. I am because we are. If I help you, I'm helping myself. If I harm you, I'm harming myself. But that also is aligned with Hellenic philosophies. So although Ubuntu is an African word from the Bantu people of Africa, but it resonates with cultures such as Mediterranean cultures and some Eastern cultures, and certainly some of the Western cultures. So that's what I will be bringing to the table.
Well, we're wishing you all the best of luck for that tenure. Thank you for flying the flag high for South Africa and for serving as a mirror, a conversation starter on some of those pertinent issues and restoring the agency of the continent at large. Professor Thuli Madonsela, just on the back of her newly appointed role as the UN Scientific Advisory Board, she's going to be looking at some of the impacts that science and technology has in the world, perhaps as we're looking at that shifting geopolitical sphere and what her focus on social justice, in fact, can bring to the table and to that conversation at large. Again, thank you to her for her time with us on the SABC.